Few bands in the history of rock and roll have burned as brightly and as chaotically as Guns N' Roses. In their prime, they were more than just a band. They were a cultural phenomenon, a force of nature that seemed unstoppable. Their music resonated with raw power, their performances electrified audiences, and their story encapsulated the highs and lows of fame. At the heart of it all was Axl Rose, a frontman whose charisma and intensity defined the band as much as their iconic sound. But the story of Guns N' Roses is as much about destruction as it is about creation. Behind the scenes, tensions simmered, egos clashed, and personal demons wreaked havoc on their relationships. What should have been a triumphant march to rock immortality instead became a tale of self-destruction. Over the years, Axl has remained tight-lipped about the exact reasons behind the band's implosion. However, in recent interviews, he has begun to shed light on the turbulent journey that brought Guns N' Roses both their incredible success and their tragic downfall. This is the story of Guns N' Roses as told by the man who lived it, a story of ambition, excess, betrayal, and ultimately, redemption. To understand Guns N' Roses, you must first understand Axl Rose, the man, the myth, and the enigma. Born William Bruce Rose Jr. on February 6, 1962, in Lafayette, Indiana, Axl's childhood was anything but idyllic. His biological father abandoned the family when he was just 2 years old, and his stepfather, Stephen Bailey, was reportedly abusive and controlling. These early experiences left a profound mark on Axl, shaping both his personality and his art. Music became Axl's refuge. Growing up in a deeply religious household, he was exposed to gospel music, which laid the foundation for his powerful vocal style. As a teenager, Axl began exploring rock and roll, immersing himself in the music of bands like Queen, Led Zeppelin, and Aerosmith. These artists became his idols, inspiring him to dream of a life beyond Lafayette. But Axl's teenage years were turbulent. Frequently at odds with authority figures, he found himself in and out of trouble. His fiery temper and rebellious streak often led to run-ins with the law. By the time he reached his early 20s, it was clear that staying in Lafayette would only stifle his ambitions. In 1982, he packed his bags and moved to Los Angeles, a decision that would change his life forever. When Axl arrived in Los Angeles, the city was a bustling hub for aspiring rock stars. The Sunset Strip, with its iconic venues like the Whiskey A Go-Go, the Roxy, and the Troubadour, was the epicenter of the music scene. But the LA music scene in the early 1980s was dominated by glam metal, a genre defined by its flashy outfits, big hair, and often shallow lyrics. For someone like Axl, who craved authenticity and emotional depth in music, this was both a challenge and an opportunity. Axl quickly immersed himself in the city's vibrant underground scene, performing with several local bands and honing his craft as a vocalist. It was during this period that he crossed paths with musicians who shared his vision for a new kind of rock music. Saul Hudson, better known as Slash, was a guitar prodigy with a bluesy melodic style that perfectly complemented Axl's raw, expressive vocals. Duff McKagan, a punk-influenced bassist from Seattle, brought a harder edge to the group. Izzy Stradlin, a childhood friend of Axl's from Indiana, was a prolific songwriter whose understated style balanced Axl's intensity. And Steven Adler, a charismatic drummer with an infectious personality, rounded out the lineup. Guns N' Roses officially formed in 1985, and their rise was meteoric. From the outset, the band had a unique chemistry that set them apart from the countless other acts on the Sunset Strip. Unlike many of their peers, who relied on flashy stage theatrics and radio-friendly hits, Guns N' Roses focused on creating music that was authentic and emotionally resonant. Their early gigs were chaotic but unforgettable. The band's live performances were a whirlwind of energy and intensity, with Axl commanding the stage like a man possessed. Slash's guitar solos were mesmerizing. Izzy's rhythm guitar provided a solid backbone, and the rhythm section of Duff and Steven drove the music forward with relentless force. Audiences couldn't get enough. Within a year of forming, Guns N' Roses had built a loyal following and attracted the attention of major record labels. Their reputation as the most dangerous band in the world was already beginning to take shape, fueled by their wild antics, both on and off stage. It wasn't just their music that made them stand out. It was their attitude. They weren't trying to fit into the mold of a typical rock band. They were breaking it. In 1986, Guns N' Roses signed with Geffen Records and began working on their debut album, Appetite for Destruction. The stakes were high. The band knew they had something special, but capturing the raw energy of their live performances in the studio would be no easy task. Producer Mike Klink was brought on board to guide the process, and his disciplined approach proved invaluable. The band spent months in the studio, perfecting every note and lyric. Axl, in particular, was meticulous about his vocal performances, often demanding multiple takes until he achieved the exact emotional impact he wanted. The result was nothing short of revolutionary. Appetite for Destruction was a raw, unfiltered snapshot of life in Los Angeles, equal parts hedonistic and harrowing. Songs like Welcome to the Jungle and Paradise City captured the thrill and danger of the city's nightlife, while tracks like Sweet Child of Mine showcased the band's softer, more introspective side. The album didn't achieve instant success. Initially, radio stations and MTV were hesitant to play the band's music, deeming it too edgy for mainstream audiences. But once the video for Welcome to the Jungle began airing, everything changed. The album skyrocketed to the top of the charts, eventually becoming the best-selling debut album of all time. With the success of Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses became the hottest band on the planet. Their songs were everywhere, on the radio, on MTV, and in the hearts of millions of fans. The band embarked on a grueling world tour, performing to sold-out arenas and cementing their reputation as one of the greatest live acts of all time. But fame came at a price. The relentless schedule took a toll on the band, both physically and emotionally. Axl, who had always been a perfectionist, became increasingly demanding during live performances, often clashing with his bandmates. At the same time, the pressures of fame led to excessive partying and substance abuse, particularly for Steven Adler and Slash. Despite these challenges, Guns N' Roses continued to dominate the music world. Their follow-up releases, including the GNR Lies EP, showcased their versatility and kept fans hungry for more. By the early 1990s, the band was at the height of its powers, poised to release their most ambitious project yet, the double album Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Guns N' Roses had become synonymous with the decadent rock and roll lifestyle. The band didn't just indulge in excess, they defined it. Their wild antics, fueled by alcohol and a relentless schedule, became legendary. While their lifestyle reinforced their rebellious image, it also came with a steep price. Behind the scenes, the very behaviors that added to their mystique were unraveling the fabric of the band. Steven Adler, the drummer, whose boundless energy had been instrumental to the band's early sound, was the first casualty. Steven's heroin addiction spiraled out of control during the recording sessions for Use Your Illusion, making it impossible for him to perform at the level the band required. His inability to stay sober in the studio led to countless delays, frustrating the other members and adding tension to an already strained environment. When Adler was fired in 1990, it was a wake-up call for fans and the music industry. Guns N' Roses' internal problems were becoming too big to ignore. But Adler wasn't alone in his struggles. Slash and Duff McKagan also fell deeper into substance abuse. Slash, known for his laid-back demeanor and unmatched guitar skills, developed a serious addiction to heroin and alcohol. On the surface, Slash appeared composed, but behind closed doors, he was spiraling. There were nights when his condition was so dire that he narrowly avoided death. Similarly, Duff McKagan's drinking reached dangerous levels. His pancreas nearly failed in 1994 due to years of heavy alcohol consumption, forcing him to confront the destructive path he was on. Axl Rose, while not a heavy substance user, was far from untouched by the chaos. His emotional volatility, combined with the pressures of fame and the band's growing instability, created an explosive dynamic. The band's reputation for unpredictability extended to their concerts, where delays and cancellations became commonplace. Axl's perfectionism clashed with the erratic behavior of his bandmates, and his own tendency to storm off stage or lash out in frustration exacerbated tensions with fans and crew. The band's rock and roll image, once a badge of honor, began to take its toll. What started as a way to cope with the pressures of fame became a self-destructive cycle that pushed the band closer to its breaking point. By the early 1990s, Guns N' Roses was teetering on the edge of collapse. The cracks that had begun to form during the Use Your Illusion sessions widened into chasms. Each member of the band was grappling with their own issues, and the camaraderie that had once fueled their success seemed like a distant memory. The departure of Izzy Stradlin in 1991 marked a turning point. Izzy had always been the quiet, stabilizing presence in the band, a prolific songwriter and a grounding force amid the chaos. But even he had limits. Growing weary of the band's dysfunction, Izzy decided to walk away, citing Axl's erratic behavior and the toxic environment created by substance misuse. For Axl, Izzy's departure felt like a betrayal, and it left a void that was impossible to fill. Izzy's absence highlighted how much the band had already changed, with the original chemistry now irreparably damaged. The relationship between Axl and Slash, once the creative heart of the band, deteriorated to the point of open hostility. Their creative differences, particularly over the band's direction, became insurmountable. Axl's ambition to evolve Guns N' Roses into a more experimental and genre-defying act clashed with Slash's preference for sticking to the raw guitar-driven sound that had defined their early success. These artistic disagreements were compounded by personal clashes. Axl felt that Slash didn't respect his vision, while Slash grew increasingly frustrated with what he perceived as Axl's controlling tendencies. Duff McKagan's departure in 1997 was the final nail in the coffin for the original lineup. By this point, the band's original spirit was gone, and Axl was the only remaining member of the founding group. Determined to keep Guns N' Roses alive, Axl recruited new musicians and continued to perform under the band's name. However, for many fans, this iteration of Guns N' Roses felt like a shadow of its former self. The magic that had once defined the band was lost, leaving behind a legacy marred by missed opportunities and fractured relationships. In the years following Guns N' Roses' collapse, Axl Rose largely disappeared from the public eye. For nearly a decade, he became a reclusive figure, working on new music in near-total isolation. The long-anticipated album Chinese Democracy became infamous for its prolonged production, with rumors of Axl's perfectionism and indecision stalling its release for years. When it finally debuted in 2008, it was met with mixed reviews. While some praised its ambition, others lamented the absence of the original lineup's raw energy. During this period, Axl began to reflect on the events that had led to the band's disintegration. In rare interviews, he expressed regret for some of his actions, admitting that his perfectionism and emotional struggles had contributed to the conflicts that tore the band apart. For fans who had long seen Axl as a volatile and unyielding figure, this newfound introspection was a revelation. The turning point came in 2016, when Axl, Slash, and Duff McKagan reunited for the Not in This Lifetime tour. This reunion was nothing short of miraculous for fans, many of whom had resigned themselves to the belief that the original members would never share a stage again. The tour was a massive success, grossing over $584 million and becoming one of the highest-grossing concert tours of all time. For the band, it was an opportunity to reconnect with their shared history and celebrate the music that had brought them together. Axl's reconciliation with Slash and Duff wasn't just a professional milestone, it was a personal one. After decades of bad blood, the three musicians found a way to move past their differences and honor the legacy they had created together. While the reunion didn't include all original members, it was a powerful reminder of what Guns N' Roses had accomplished and how their music continued to resonate with fans around the world. Today, Guns N' Roses stands as a testament to the power of music to endure beyond the chaos of its creators. Despite their tumultuous history, the band's influence on rock music is undeniable. From their explosive debut to their experimental later works, Guns N' Roses redefined what a rock band could be. They were equal parts ferocious and vulnerable, their music capturing the full spectrum of human emotion. Their story is one of triumph and tragedy, a cautionary tale about the dangers of excess and ego, but also a celebration of what can be achieved when raw talent and ambition collide. For millions of fans, Guns N' Roses represents more than just music. They are a symbol of rebellion, resilience, and the unrelenting pursuit of greatness. Even now, as they continue to perform to sold-out crowds around the world, the legacy of Guns N' Roses remains as vibrant as ever. Their music continues to inspire new generations of artists, ensuring that their impact will be felt for decades to come. While the band may never fully return to the heights of their original lineup, the story of Guns N' Roses is far from over. It is a story of reinvention, redemption, and the enduring power of rock and roll.